How you doing? My name is Jose Medina. I'm an active 26-year law enforcement veteran, primarily focused on my career in law enforcement tactics and SWAT training. With that being said, I also have a training company, Team APC, where we conduct high-end training for police SWAT teams, narcotics units, and special operations teams such as in the military. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the really cool stuff that was in the original John Wick 1 movie. And going right into it, we're going to talk about the different tactics that we use. So the first scene in the John Wick movie where they talk about when he gets into the attack mode, where the Russian mob hit team coming up there moving in a really good tactical shooting platform, meaning their feet, toes towards this red area, which is always a great positive for instructors like me to see. You can say, hey man, they really did a good job having these guys moving towards the house, similar to what we do in SWAT. The guys make their entry covertly, quietly. Wick's waiting for them. He engages into the hand-to-hand combat, into shooting platform mode, and right out of the box, he starts wasting some dudes really fast. As the shootout's going, I'm sitting there calculating, okay, what type of gun is he using compared to when is he gonna reload, or if he's ever gonna reload. And at one point, he goes into about 8 rounds, and all of a sudden you see him do a combat reload where he pulls out another mag, inserts a new mag in his H&K pistol, and usually those handguns are about a 13 rounds and 1 in a chamber. So clearly, he definitely had enough ammo to continue shooting, but he did a great job. So that was a good A+ in my opinion to do that reload. Then there's another scene where he actually rolls with a guy. He drags a guy and he shoots a guy down the hallway with a one-handed shot. The big key here is that most of the time, a lot of these movies, they'll do a gangster style type of flinch shoot where they turn the gun and the sights are off on the horizontal plane and they're just kind of popping off rounds like just flinch shooting. You can tell he actually trained straight across one arm platform, stabilized arm platform, and accurate shots, which was really good to see. He did jump on a guy's back. Even his arm reach extension was perfect. He put it out there and shot the guy right through the glass window area where I guess it was hallway and dining room. So that was great. Then going into the second shooting scene, combative scene, is where they go into the nightclub. And that was where I was really impressed. He's tossing guys, he's actually shooting guys at close range, shooting guys at long range. When they're moving through the crowds, he's kind of pushing through, and as he's doing high blocks, which is basically weapon retention. The term weapon retention is if someone's going for your gun or going for your whatever weapon you have in your hand, you're trying to retain that weapon, so you have to do whatever it takes. So what happens is a high block comes, because someone's trying to throw a punch at you or maybe hit you with a bat, you can protect your head. So you can protect your head, and actually your elbow can be part of a weapon tool. So if it comes up, you can actually strike the person at close range, create that space just enough to simply just get that weapon out. So you pull it away, say they have their hand on the gun, you could trap, create space, fire that round, multiple shots into the abdomen or the upper torso in an upward fashion. Then you could push that person off and go back to a two-handed hold, which a lot of the John Wick movie you could see. At one point, he even punches a guy in the throat. Some people will say, oh my God, that's not realistic. Reality is, yes, it is. Like, actually, if I'm in a CQB environment where I go to a high block and I'm firing, all of a sudden I'm stepping back to shoot, and then the guy keeps coming, I might just throat strike them just like with a rifle. I'll barrel strike a person if they're coming at me, if they're unarmed, but they come at me, I can barrel strike it and wrap the barrel and take them down with it. And at one point he does another combat reload, reloads his gun. He realizes at one point that his gun goes empty, and reality is, there's actually in that area of the scene, he'll look down at one point, look down at his gun, and some people will say, why do you look down at his gun? Well, because he realizes he's empty. And ask any great SWAT cop, any police officer that's out there who shoots a lot, even some of these NRA shooters and stuff like that, sometimes they just, realistically, they're popping off in the zone so many rounds and they forget. And a lot of time I call it tactical CPR. They'll look down and they'll hit the gun like, oh my God, it's not firing. But they realize, crap, it's empty. In that same scene, he's actually moving down the hallway, and he's actually moving with his weapon properly just below his line of sight. He's actually it's called railing, where they rail the gun close to the body for CQB. So if you're approaching doors to the left or right, you want to rail that gun close to your body so you don't over penetrate the view of a bad guy. And at one point he's moving down that hallway. He's doing a great job doing that. So a lot of kudos in that area. I mean, he basically was just taught how to move with that weapon properly, where a lot of people do the old, for those young, old enough to know, the Andy Dickinson, the cops down below here and moving down the hallway, leaving their upper extremities open. He's close contact with his gun, ready to fire at all times. There's another area of a scene there where he's actually back to back with a guy against like a sheetrock wall, and he actually just turns his gun and actually flinch shoots a couple rounds down towards the right side where he sees the guy, and he hits him in the foot. Realistically, you can shoot through sheetrock and kill somebody or wound somebody. At the same time, you can actually flinch shot down below, and those rounds could actually hurt somebody. So again, these are techniques that we actually teach. In the law enforcement world, we don't go that off the chains because obviously law enforcement is not Hollywood, but again, the tactics, go back to the tactics, a lot of them were really right on point. So that scene was really good there. And then we move into the next shootout scene where he goes into the church. And I can tell you that was another impressive scene where he comes right at the priest, shoots to wound him, to drop him, to basically incapacitate him temporarily. And then he knows that these other guys in the pews are waiting for him. And basically what he does a lot of turning into the known territory is what we call it. Basically you're pivoting. If you're gonna go right, you always pivot on your right foot and you turn towards, this is where I wanna go. Pivots again, backwards, the opposite direction, he hits the second guy. At one point there's a scene in that pew shootout where he's moving and pivoting and turning and reacting. It's the same thing in his training. Steel target poppers come up from different levels. They're coming up, and that's what he was trained to react. One comes up, ding, hits the steel. Second one, ding. So when you put in real life and you see bad guys coming at you, you can actually turn your body in different directions, and that's how he was taught to engage threats. That's why his gun muzzle discipline was just below line of sight, so he can acquire his targets no matter where he turned. Where a lot of people, they look with the squinting eye in real time, and they squint with that eye, and then they have to present that gun up to their eye, which is pretty it's not hard to do. It's just you have half a visual where two eyes open, you see pivot, ding, pivot, ting, pivot, ting. And then the parking lot scene, very impressed with the tactical movements, elbows nice and tight. That's one of the key things. A lot of times you'll see a lot of these shooting platforms with the rifles, the elbows out, which is our old military John Wayne style shooting, and it has its place. But when it comes to CQB, close quarter battle movement, and going after attack mode people, having your elbows tight to the body, almost like a support element, just moving from left to right, scanning left and right. He's moving. His footwork is it's a nice speed motion. Basically, it's a natural walking platform, which is what we call like a Warren service speed, where you naturally walk, and he's walking with the gun without the barrel of the gun bouncing, and he's engaging at his reactionary targets, which are the bad guys. In this movie, the bad guys are firing, he's reacting, and there's even a scene where he's actually taking bullets, multiple rounds, through a vehicle, and the rounds are going through the glass, the doors, and he actually gets low as he's moving. He's constantly moving, so he's doing a great job. He's staying low because the rounds are going through the glass of the vehicle, and he gets to the back portion of the driver's side rear. So he does a good job avoiding, again, the tracking mechanism where he's moving and it's hard to hit a moving target, and that's where he engages back and forth. And although I thought a little gig where he steps out with his legs wide open and he's engaging these guys, even though he did that, his stance, if you look at his stance, and people who watch this video, you say to yourself, watch his stance. His stance is in a fighting stance. So like if you stopped and took the picture of him standing next to that vehicle, and you take the rifle out of his hand, and you just put his hands there, he's in a normal fighting stance, which is that's how most combative people, that's how any SWAT operator, special forces, or just a homeowner who's trying to defend himself, you get a better shot off by standing the way he did. So that's a great kudos there. Creme de la creme, the final finale where they're on the pier and the Russian boss is trying to escape with his guys, and John Wick comes ballistic on him with his car and chasing him down. He does a 90-degree spin on his vehicle and he shoots the guy, although that's almost an impossible shot to take. Again, let's talk about the shooting platform. Anything he did with his gun, whether it's the scene where he's inside his car and he's shooting people from the vehicle, they made sure that his arm extension, when he punched that weapon out of his vehicle, his arm was stabilized. So realistically, you get good one-handed shooters will tell you they can get a good shot off with a good stable platform. If his arm was bent in and he was doing like a candid gangster style, chances are, they might have gotten maybe a couple flailing rounds coming at him, but reality, accurate shots come when you have a good, stable platform. So again, all those scenes where he's in his vehicle and he's shooting, the stable platform was really good for his arm. So I give him kudos on that. So again, that's kind of where I can see the movie was well thought out when it comes to special weapons and tactics.
So let's talk a little bit about just like Keanu Reeves. Like, you look at an actor like that, where would you how would you grade him?
Just seeing that training that he did, and then just doing some follow-up on his background, because he's obviously in real life, he's a very low-key guy. I think if I was able to take him to some of our SWAT training classes and specialty classes, I think he'd hang with the best of them. I just think just by watching a lot of intense drills that he did, and adding the MMA component to it, but just the tactics of the weapon handling and stuff, he definitely has, I'd give him at least a good, I'd like to give a guy an A+, but because he's not in our business, I'd give him at least a B+, and with time, if he had more time, because there's a lot of SWAT operators and obviously special forces guys that, they bleed this stuff, and he knows that, and he respects all of what we do, and we respect him for all the hard work. He's willing to sweat for umpteen hours a day to get it right, where we in law enforcement and even the special forces guys and gals, you can't make any mistakes. In movies, he knows, and just his interviews, he knows that he can make his mistakes and get better at it, where for us, we want to make our mistakes in training, but in real life, when we go out there, we only get one shot, and if it doesn't work for us, we may not be coming home alive. So he knows that, that's why I give him a good B+, or like an A- just for his heart, for what he showed. Thanks again for watching. If you have any information or any questions you want to ask, our social media handle and our company business information will be listed below. And if you're interested, we also did a handle on the cons of the movie John Wick, some of the negative things that we picked out as well. So again, check that out also.